solitary man by nature, a hiker named Daniel, who finds peace in the vast, untamed wilderness. Last autumn, I ventured into the dense forests of the Cascades, a sprawling expanse of towering pines and hidden ravines. Seeking solitude after a grueling divorce that left my heart in pieces. My plan was simple: a 3-day trek with my weathered tent, a crumpled map marked with faint trails, and a trusty flashlight that flickered with each step. The first day unfolded like a dream, the crisp air filling my lungs, the crunch of fallen leaves under my boots, a soothing rhythm, the rustle of wind through pine needles, a gentle lullaby. I set up camp by a bubbling brook, the water reflecting the golden hues of the setting sun, and I felt, for the first time in months, a sense of calm. But on the second night, as I sat by my crackling campfire, its flames casting long shadows that danced with the trees, something changed. A faint glow pierced the darkness, not the steady beam of a ranger's patrol light, but a warm golden hue that pulsed like a living heartbeat. I stood, brushing ash from my hands, and called out, "Hello, is someone there?" The forest swallowed my voice, offering no response, just the persistent crackle of my fire. The glow moved, retreating deeper into the woods, a tantalizing invitation I could not ignore. Against my better judgment, I grabbed my flashlight, its beam cutting through the thickening fog that seemed to rise from the earth itself, and followed, my curiosity outweighing the warnings echoing in my mind. The light led me off the familiar trail, of gnarled roots that snagged at my boots, across moss-covered rocks that glistened with dew, my breath visible in the chill air that grew colder with each step. After an hour, my legs aching, my flashlight dimming, I reached a clearing where the glow hovered, a lantern suspended in midair, its glass cracked like shattered memories, its flame dancing without fuel or wick. I approached, mesmerized by its unnatural beauty, when a whisper brushed my ear, soft as a lover's breath, "Stay with us." I spun around, my heart pounding, but I was alone. The forest silent except for the lantern's soft hum that vibrated through the ground. I should have turned back, should have heeded the instinct screaming at me to flee. But something compelled me forward, a pull I could not explain. The lantern floated ahead, guiding me through a maze of trees, their branches intertwining like skeletal hands, till I stumbled into a circle of ancient stones, moss-covered and weathered, ranged like a forgotten ritual site lost to time. The lantern settled on a pedestal at the center, and the whispers grew into voices, a chorus of men, women, children, all saying my name, Daniel, in a harmony that sent shivers down my spine. The air thickened, heavy with a presence that was not hostile, but hungry, a void waiting to be filled. Panic set in, my chest tightening as I realized the gravity of my situation. I tried to leave, pushing through the underbrush, but the trees shifted, their trunks bending and twisting, closing the path behind me like a living wall. The lantern flared, its light casting shadows that moved independently, stretching into humanoid shapes with hollow voices that mimicked my gasps. I swung my flashlight, its beam passing through them like they were made of mist, and the voices intensified, "You are ours now," rising to a crescendo that made my head throb. I saw them then, faint outlines of people, their forms translucent, their mouths open in silent screams that I felt more than heard. Hours passed, or so I thought, the night stretching into an endless void as I circled the stones, searching for an escape. My hands clawing at the bark, my nails breaking. My watch stopped at 3:33 a.m., its hands frozen, and my phone showed no signal, the battery draining to nothing despite being fully charged that morning. The shadows solidified, their forms taking on weight, reaching for me with cold, bony hands that brushed my skin. leaving a trail of goosebumps. I climbed a tree, my muscles screaming, heart pounding in my ears, watching as the figures gathered below, their whispers turning to laughter, a sound that echoed inside my skull, bouncing off the walls of my mind. Dawn should have come, the first light of morning to rescue me from this nightmare, but the sky remained black. The moon, a pale witness frozen above, its light mocking my plight. I descended, desperate, my legs trembling, and found the lantern extinguished. Its glow snuffed out, the pedestal empty as if it had never been. The voices stopped, the silence deafening, and the path reopened, a narrow thread through the trees. Relief washed over me, a bitter taste in my mouth, as I stumbled back to my campsite. Collapsing into my tent, my body shaking with exhaustion. But when I checked my gear, my map was gone, replaced by a photograph of me standing in that stone circle, my hands outstretched as if welcoming, my face serene in a way I did not remember. I hiked out that day, my steps heavy, vowing never to return to those woods, the image of that photograph burning in my mind. Weeks later, I noticed a rash on my neck, black veins spreading like roots, branching out with each passing day. I visited doctors who could offer no explanation, their treatments useless against the creeping darkness. Last night, I woke to that lantern glowing on my nightstand, its flame reigniting with a hiss. And the whispers returned, "Welcome home, Daniel." I felt my hands move on their own, tracing the circle of stones in the air, my fingers trembling as if guided by an unseen force. My name is Elena, a freelance photographer with a passion for capturing nature's raw, spoiled beauty, a pursuit that has taken me across continents and into the heart of the wild. Last spring, I trekked into the Black Forest, a remote woodland in Germany. Known for its eerie silence and tales of vanished travelers, armed with my camera, a tripod, and a week's worth of supplies, planning to lose myself in solitude. The first day was a photographer's paradise, dear, darting through the mist that clung to the ground, like a living thing, sunlight filtering through the dense canopy in golden shafts, the air filled with the scent of pine and earth. I set up my camp by a mossy outcrop, the click of my shutter a comforting companion, and I felt a rare sense of peace. But on the second evening, as I adjusted my tripod to capture the fading light, I heard it, a soft crunch of leaves, a rhythm that matched my own cautious steps, yet I was alone in that vast expanse. I paused, my breath catching, and scanned the trees, my camera's flash illuminating nothing but the gnarled branches and shadows that seemed to shift with the wind. Shrugging it off as a trick of my imagination, I continued, but the footsteps persisted, a stated cadence that grew louder with each passing minute. That night, huddled in my tent, I reviewed my photos on my camera's small screen, and I noticed a faint imprint in the dirt. A boot print larger than mine etched into the frame of a shot where I had stood still, my tripod planted firmly. But I told myself it was a natural anomaly, a deer, perhaps, though the shape was unmistakably human. The next morning, the sensation intensified, a weight pressing against my senses, acute, rustling, saw branches bend without the touch of wind, the forest alive with an unseen presence. My camera captured more prints, dozens now, encircling my camp. Always, just beyond the lens's reach, a silent gallery of pursuit. I packed my gear, determined to leave, but my compass spun wildly in my hands, its needle dancing without direction. K's failed, its screen blank, leaving me disoriented in a sea of green. K. The footsteps grew louder, a steady march that vibrated through the soil, and I felt a presence, a cold breath on my neck, a weight in the air behind every tree I passed. I ran, my camera banging against my chest, tripping over roots that seemed to rise to snare me, my breath ragged in the thickening fog. A clearing offered a momentary respite, the open space, a false promise of safety, but the footsteps converged, forming a circle around me. Their rhythm, a drumbeat of doom. I raised my camera, snapping frantically, the flash revealing them, humanoid shapes, with no voices, just the sound of their march echoing through the trees. They moved closer, silent, their presence suffocating, the air growing heavy with a scent like damp earth and decay. I screamed, a raw sound torn from my throat, and the footsteps mimicked it, a chorus of my own voice bouncing back, mocking my fear. Exhausted, my legs burning, I climbed a ridge, hoping for a signal, a lifeline to civilization. It's the march tracking me with relentless precision, the ground trembling under their approach. I felt their nearness, a cold breeze brushing my skin, and one neared its presence like a shadow without form, and I saw a vision, my studio back home, empty. My equipment silent, my life paused. Panic surged, a wave crashing over me, but the figure retreated, and the circle dispersed, leaving me gasping in the sudden quiet. I found my way back to my campsite, shaken to my core, my hands trembling as I developed my photos with a portable printer I carried. They showed me, standing alone, but with those boot prints superimposed over my path, multiplying with each shot, a map of my doom, etched in silver nitrate. I fled the woods, my gear abandoned, vowing never to return to that cursed place, the images haunting my every step. Months later, back in my city apartment, I noticed my boots leaving prints indoors, larger than before, their tread matching those from the forest. Last night, I woke to footsteps pacing my hallway, stopping at my door. A knock that was not a knock, but a rhythm I knew too well. I am Marcus, a fisherman who finds solace in the solitude of the wild, a man who has spent decades casting lines into rivers and lakes, listening to the gentle lap of water against my boat. Last summer, I ventured into the Adirondack woods, a rugged wilderness of rolling hills and dense forests, king a rumored stream teeming with trout that locals whispered about in hushed tones. With my weathered rod, a small aluminum boat patched with duct tape, and a week's supply of provisions, I paddled into uncharted territory. The forest swallowing me whole with its towering trees and shadowed depths. The first day yielded nothing, the water silent, its surface a mirror of the overcast sky, the air still save for the occasional call of a distant bird. I set up camp on a sandy bank, the crackle of my fire the only sound, and I felt a strange contentment settle over me. But on the second morning, as I prepared my tackle, I heard it, a low murmur rising from the underbrush, like voices carried on the wind, faint yet persistent, emanating from a narrow creek I had not noticed before, its entrance hidden by overhanging branches that drooped like weary arms. Curiosity, that old companion of mine, drove me to investigate. The creek was a dark ribbon winding through the trees, its water murky, carrying a stillness that unnerved me, a silence that seemed to pulse with intent. The voices grew clearer as I approached, calling my name, Marcus, in tones that were both pleading and commanding, a siren song that tugged at my chest. I anchored my boat, the metal scraping against stone, and stepped onto the muddy bank, my boots sinking slightly into the soft earth, the air filling with a scent of decay that made my stomach turn. The voices urged me deeper, promising secrets, treasures hidden beneath the surface, and I could not resist their pull. I followed, the creek widening into a pool surrounded by twisted trees, their bark scarred with deep gashes, the water rippling without wind, a movement that felt alive, shape formed in the center, not human. Its form fluid, mouth opening to reveal jagged edges that gleamed like wet stone. Spoke, its voice a gurgle. "Join us, Marcus. See the truth." I backed away, my heart racing, but the ground shifted beneath me, roots snaking up from the soil, wrapping around my ankles with a strength that belied their thinness. The shape laughed, a sound that echoed off the trees. And more appeared, dozens of them, their mouths chanting my name in a chorus that vibrated through my bones. Panic set in, my chest tightening as I struggled against the roots, my hands clawing at the earth, my rod slipping from my grasp. I swung my fist, breaking free with a grunt, the roots snapping like brittle twigs, and I ran. The voices chasing me with laughter that turned the air sour. The forest warped around me, paths looping back to the pool, the trees bending to block my escape, their branches whispering my name. Exhausted, my legs trembling, I fell to my knees, and the water rose. Tendrils of liquid reaching for me, cold and slick against my skin. I saw visions, my family drowning in a flood, my home swept away, the water filling my lungs. All while the shapes sang my name in a melody that made my head spin. I managed to climb a tree, my fingers digging into the bark, watching as the pool drained, revealing a cavern beneath, its walls slick with moisture, filled with skeletal figures, their voices echoing, submerged in the water that lapped at their bones. The murmurs stopped, the silence a heavy blanket, and the creek vanished, leaving me on dry land, my clothes soaked, my mind reeling. I hiked out, shaken, my boat abandoned, and returned to my life, the memory of that pool haunting my dreams. But weeks later, I found my skin peeling, revealing scales beneath, my hands trembling as I touched the slick patches. I visited doctors who could offer no cure, their faces pale as they examined me. Last night, I heard the creek outside my window, its water lapping against the glass, calling me back with that same gurgling voice. My name is Rachel, a writer desperate for a breakthrough, my career stalled by a string of rejected manuscripts and a mind that refused to cooperate. Last winter, I rented a cabin deep in the Maine woods, a place advertised as a retreat for creativity, its brochure promising solitude amidst snow-laden pines and the whisper of wind through the trees. The first night was quiet, the fireplace crackling with a warmth that seeped into my bones. My notebook open on the rough wooden table, the scratch of my pen the only sound. But as I wrote, lost in the flow of words, I heard a creak not from the wind rattling the windows, but from the walls themselves, a deep, resonant sound like the cabin was stretching its limbs after a long sleep. I dismissed it as old wood settling under the weight of snow, a common occurrence in these ancient structures. But the next morning, as I sipped my coffee, my compass pointed north, yet the cabin's windows revealed a different forest, unfamiliar sounds drifting through the glass, the chirp of birds I did not recognize. I stepped outside, my boots crunching on fresh snow, and the cabin shifted, its porch elongating with a groan, the door slamming shut behind me with a force that shook the frame. Panic rose, a cold knot in my stomach, as I realized the cabin had moved, now surrounded by a thicket of thorns and trees I had not seen before, their branches swaying without wind. Inside, the furniture rearranged itself, chairs sliding across the floor to face me, clock on the mantel ticking backward with a rhythmic clack, its hands spinning in defiance of time. I heard whispers, low and insistent, "Write our story, Rachel," emanating from the walls, the fireplace flaring with a sudden burst, showing images in the flames, a woman's voice, my voice, pleading in a language I did not understand. I tried to leave, my hand on the doorknob, but the door vanished, the walls closing in. the air growing thick with a scent like burnt paper that stung my nostrils. Days blurred into a haze, my food dwindling to crumbs, the cabin taunting me with shifting rooms, the kitchen morphing into a library, the bedroom into a hallway that looped back on itself. I found a typewriter in a corner, its keys clicking on their own, words forming a tale of my death, detailed with the creak of floorboards. The scent of smoke, the silence that followed. The clock stopped, its hands frozen, then spun again. And the cabin's floor vibrated, pulling furniture into its depths with a sucking sound, the wood groaning as if in pain. The whispers turned to screams, a cacophony that shook the rafters. And the cabin lifted its roof, revealing a starry sky for a fleeting moment before slamming shut, trapping me in darkness. I escaped through a window that appeared, a jagged hole in the wall, running until I reached a snow-covered road, my lungs burning with the cold. Returned to civilization, my novel finished. A bestseller that critics praised for its haunting realism, my name on every tongue. But last night, I woke to my bedroom transforming, the walls creaking with that familiar groan, the clock reappearing on my dresser, ticking backward, and my hands typing on an invisible machine. The end is near, Rachel. The words flowing without my will. I am Trevor, an amateur hiker who underestimated the vast, unforgiving Smoky Mountains, my enthusiasm outweighing my experience with every step I took. Last fall, I strayed from my group during a sudden storm, the sky opening with a deluge that soaked my map, rendering it useless. My phone dead in my pocket, its screen a black void. The rain battered me, a relentless assault that stung my skin as I stumbled through the woods, calling for help. My voice lost in the howling wind that tore through the canopy. Then I heard it, my own voice echoing back, "Trevor, this way." Clear and calm, a beacon of hope in the chaos, as if guiding me through the tempest. Relief flooded my chest, a warmth against the cold, and I followed the echo, the rain easing to a drizzle, the path seeming to form under my feet, a muddy trail that glistened with promise. The echo repeated, "You are safe now," leading me to a cave, its entrance glowing faintly with a light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The air inside warm and dry, a stark contrast to the storm outside. I collapsed, grateful, my body aching, and drifted to sleep, the echo's voice a lullaby that soothed my fears. I awoke to silence, the cave walls smooth and cool to the touch, humming with my own voice as if the stone itself remembered me. The echo returned, looked deeper, and I saw visions. My family gathered in black, mourning with tears, my funeral with a closed casket that hid my fate. Fear gripped me, a vice around my heart, but the echo soothed. "You can return. Follow me." Led me through tunnels, the walls whispering my thoughts, my regrets about missed opportunities, my guilt over forgotten promises, a litany that made my head spin. The cave opened to a cliff, its edge a sheer drop into darkness, the echo promising a path below, a way back to life. I climbed down, my hands scraping against the rock, the voices growing, showing me riches and gold coins spilling from chests. Love in the arms of a woman I did not know, a second chance at a life I had squandered. But the cliff crumbled beneath me, a roar of stone and earth, Atina, and I fell, landing on soft ground, the echo laughing, "Welcome home." The cave, sealed with a groan, and I felt their presence, countless versions of my voice, chanting in unison, a choir that filled the space. I fought, my fists pounding the walls, but the echoes pulled me into the stone, my body merging with the sound, my screams joining the chorus. I escaped, or so I thought, waking in my tent, the storm gone, the sun peeking through the trees. I hiked out, my legs weak, but my voice felt foreign, echoing in my head with a resonance I did not recognize. I returned to my life, but the sound followed me, a constant hum in my ears. Last night, I called my name in my apartment, and 1,000 Trevors answered. Their voices inside me, promising I will never be alone again, their laughter a melody I cannot escape.